All right, welcome to another installment of the Fragments of Silicon reviews. 4 reviews up this week. The first of which is World of Goo 2. All right, so I'm not sure how much of an introduction World of Goo needs. But then again, World of Goo used to be one of the indie title. It was one of the darling success stories of that initial wave of indie titles that made it when digital distribution first got popular about 15 or so years ago.
Yeah, in a similar class to like Beat Trip Runner and whatnot.
Right. Bit Trip Runner.
Bit Trip, yes.
Yeah, and World of Goo specifically made a name for itself on the WiiWare service. Mainly because it was a really good complement to the Wiimote, like the pointer controls, if I remember correctly. Probably still not as good as a mouse, but I could definitely see it being better than an analog stick. I'll be honest, I played the PC version, so I don't know how it played on WiiWare, but I do know, it became a huge success, both commercially and critically. Like, there was a time when World of Goo, it may still be up there on Metacritic. Like, it was like one of the Wii's best reviewed games ever. Like, right up there with, the top Nintendo titles, your Super Smash Brothers Brawl and Mario Galaxies and whatnot. World of Goo was never that good. Like, okay, I'll throw that out there right now. But to go into what World of Goo is briefly, it was about these balls of goo that were distributed by the World of Goo Corporation for seemingly altruistic / entertainment purposes. This is also the game that really established 2D Boy / Tomorrow Corporation's particular brand of writing. It's honestly the biggest thing that connects all their games together, because all their other games are very different in terms of genre, mechanics, writing, same writing, which can be a good or bad thing depending on your perspective. Anyway, World of Goo is probably still their most successful title. I don't know. We've never had them on the program, not from a lack of trying. But the point is, the developers not only undergoing a name change due to like the addition of a team member or something like that. I don't remember it explained somewhere, but regardless, they went on to make other interesting original projects like Little Inferno and 7 Billion Humans.
I'm gonna be honest, I didn't even know 7 billion humans was a thing.
Right. There's another one, a Human Resource Machine, which was a big showcase for the Wii U gamepad, if I remember correctly. Like, I played a lot of Little Inferno, only a few minutes of 7 Billion Humans and Human Resource Machine for some reason. Like, I think I was just not in the mood for their writing at that. You really do have to be in the mood to deal with Tomorrow Corporation's writing.
Yeah, it's very dry, but not like a British dry. It's like its own.
It's postmodern. I'm like, to explain what that is, ooh.
Dude, we
very
do not have enough time in this review slot for that.
yeah, but it's the basics that I think are needed for the review. It's very self-aware, very dripping with fucking irony.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot emphasize that enough.
It is actively palpable.
Very much so. Like it's bubbling with false sincerity. And that is that has been the case throughout back to the first World of Goo game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and this one, without getting into spoilers, gets into another feature of postmodern writing, metatextualism.
Oh boy.
And the specific metatextual thing that they're writing about is the fact that there hasn't been a World of Goo sequel in 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's actually a plot point in the game. I'm like, where it leads, I can't really say. That's too big of a spoiler to get into. Also, I suppose, cards semi on the table. There's another thing that I can't really talk about for spoiler reasons. All I can say is this game institutes a complete gameplay change, both in terms and a tone shift. And it's not the first time they pulled this trick either. So I will mention that. It's like when you come across it, you'll know.
Hmm.
You can't help but know.
You'll know because they'll be beating you in the face with it.
Yeah, it's also so radically different from everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but aside from that, the question may be, what is World of Goo 2 doing that's new, different, fresh, innovative, and assorted other buzzwords? And I think I can sum that up in a couple of words. And also the bullet points would have you believe it's the new goo types. Like, there are a whole bunch of new species. Like, there's the tube goos, there's the explosive goos, growth goos. I'm not sure if the balloons are counted as actual goo creatures or they just balloons, but they count well enough for the purposes of adjusting gameplay. Shrinking goos. Some of them you can garner what they're gonna do just by their name. You know, explosive goos explode. You know, shrinking shrinks, growth grows, etc., etc., etc. But no, the big gameplay addition here is liquidity. And that brings up another WiiWare game, one published by Nintendo. I think it was the last one on the WiiWare surface, and that's Fluidity.
Mm.
Or if you want to go multi-platform about it, Puddle. These were games that were all about maneuvering a bunch of liquid from point A to point B. And World of Goo 2 does that and more. Because we've also got these giant goo balls. I forget if they were given like a formal name in game or whatever, but you know, you see them all over the trailer. They're in the thumbnail. The thing that they're really proud of, you know, this solid huge ball of goo can be split up into both liquid forms, and you can also re-solidify it with another new addition to the game, which are these cannon, these squid cannons, which will shoot the goo balls in a certain direction. You have to aim it via yoinking its tongue out. Quite disgusting. But also worth mentioning that you will also be doing a lot of classic World of Goo stuff as well. As in, you will be doing a lot of tower building and bridge building, and you will still have to keep track of actual physical forces. Like, you can't just build a bridge from point A to point B. It's like it's going to literally collapse in on its weight before you'll be able to build the bridge. So you will have to build the appropriate bracers.
Mm-hmm. Or build fast enough to catch it before it, fully gets too far away.
To that end, that core gameplay mechanic ties in well to the master challenges. That is to say, you get awards for completing the course in a certain amount of time with a certain amount of goo balls, with an additional OCD reward on top of that, and a least amount of moves award.
Mm-hmm.
Beat this in 5 moves or less, kind of deal. Now, you don't have to complete those challenges to actually get through the game. I couldn't tell you what they unlock, if anything. Didn't get that far in the game, and there's also optional extra levels that are really tough. Which may be a completely new addition for this edition of World of Goo 2. The thing is, World of Goo 2 on Steam and the PlayStation family of platforms, they're the new version. Because World of Goo 2 came out on the Nintendo Switch and the Epic Games Store. One of the increasingly rare timed exclusives to that storefront. Which is a big reason why you've never heard of World of Goo 2 until now. Couldn't tell you what happened with the Switch. It might have just gotten buried.
It might have just got buried. It may have been mentioned in like a Nintendo Direct in passing.
But it's also a state of the cachet that World of Goo carries in the year of 2025 or even 2024. And we touched upon this when we talked about Braid in a topic of discussion some time ago. It's like, these games are, by game terms, old.
Mm-hmm.
Elder statesmen at best in terms of the indie gaming scene.
Yeah, like last time I played it was 2012.
Yeah, and I think I played it 2009, 2010.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a long time since I played World of Goo.
Yeah, the game dropped almost 20 years ago on Steam.
15.
2008.
Right. I'm just going by the initial release of like WiiWare versus Epic Game Store, Switch.
Right.
So it's going to face the same problems that, the Braid re-release did. It's like not as pronounced, because it is a actual new game with new features, new levels, a whole bunch of new stuff. Stuff that may upset the purists.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are a number of negative reviews on Steam complaining about this or that.
Well, like how the fluid physics works is actually really cool.
Yes. Like it isn't a carbon copy of what we saw in the games I mentioned not too long ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's something different. Because once again, yes, there are levels where you deal with liquid goo. And there's one level where you have to deal with liquid goo very quickly. Like it only flows for 30 seconds and then it stops. It took me a couple of tries. Oh, right. On that note, if you're having difficulty with a level, you can bypass it this time. If you get stuck on a level, you do not have to stick with it. So that's good news. And yeah, some of the levels are more difficult than others. Ugh. That one bridge level is still, I still couldn't conquer it. Granted, I didn't spend as much time with this game as I wanted to. That often happens when the other game catches my attention. More on that in its review. So World of Goo 2 is actually doing a whole lot of stuff that's new and different.
Well, like similar to that, this has been a pretty stacked April as far as game releases go.
That's a perpetual problem that I was just lamenting about.
Mm-hmm.
Going with the Braid sequel, the Braid re-release.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to compete against Clair Obscure, the Oblivion remaster,
Mm-hmm.
Old Skies, which is my other game this week, and a dozen or so other games.
Yeah, even games from like last month are getting their content updates and getting bigger, and people are going back to those. So it's like, I can see why a lot of people just missed this came out.
Yeah. I'm like, World of Goo benefited from being at the right place at the right time on the right platform.
Mm-hmm. Because honestly, I think if the original World of Goo just came out on PC back in the day, I don't know if it gets as big of a following as it does. It will still have its fans, but it wouldn't have gotten as big as it did.
It is a question for the ages, but you do have to remember that even the PC gaming space, the PC indie space, was a much smaller thing in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just overall, it was easier to stand out on a platform.
In fairness, we were still starting to transition from Flash games at that point.
Right, but
actually, go ahead.
I'm talking like on Steam. Like Steam was still very much the lockdown platform.
Yeah, I don't think Steam had unlocked at this point, hadn't it?
It was more if you know people, you can get in.
Yeah, you had to know somebody. It's not like it is now where you paid some money or were just popular.
Well, no, back then it was like popularity power would absolutely help you. But to get past the lament of the perpetual avalanche of games,
right?
The other thing is, there's a lot of additions here, but it's a lot of it's subtle stuff. Not all of it. Like the giant goo ball, clearly is something that stands out enough for them to basically make it the literal face of their marketing material. But it's still, the game can't quite escape its feeling like a mission-packed sequel.
Mm-hmm.
In some regards. which, you know, in some respects, it's a good thing.
It might be a little with the addition of like more fluid elements. It's probably a little more than just a mission pack sequel, but I could definitely see that.
Yeah, like I said, you know, the the new bits, they're further along in the game. Like
Mm-hmm.
the beginning parts are much more classic World of Goo. You know, as you know, once again, this game is very aware that it's been 15 years in between World of Goo games.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels the need to acclimate the audience back into its world. Um, so that is something to keep in mind. But it's definitely more than just, you know, oh, hey, it's more World of Goo.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because if it was just that, I'm pretty sure the developers would have been able to cook that up, you know, like anywhere from 6 months to 2 years or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not two whole console generations later.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I couldn't tell you why the Tomorrow Corporation has returned to World of Goo. Um, that's something we need an interview for.
Yeah, that's definitely an interview question.
Yeah. So I certainly do want to know, but I could only speculate.
Mm-hmm.
Because I also don't know their business philosophy. Like if they have a no sequels unless they have a reason to do it, which is which is actually a thing for most indies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for various
Yeah,
reasons.
or this could have been
But
roadblocked in like internal development for years before anything happened. We won't know until we interview them if we ever do.
but yeah. But honestly, all of this rhapsodizing is sidestepping the biggest stumbling block. And the real reason why I can't recommend this game. At least not at the price. I'm like, because this game clocks in as a frankly eye-watering $30.
Mm,
Like, okay, it's 15% off right now. So that means it's 25.49. Still too expensive.
yeah, especially you can get the original World of Goo for damn near free.
On sale, yes, but
Yeah.
all the other games put out by 2D Boy and Tomorrow Corporation have been $15.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, there, no, just no. There is nothing here to justify double the price.
Is there even like voice acting in this, or is it still just the text on screen type thing?
Text on the screen and the goo noises.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah. Let like and I could imagine the developers also saying, the current argument that's going on in the AAA space, maybe bleeding into the indie scene once again. The developers feel that this game should cost
Why are you
$30,
raising the prices? Because we can? Question mark.
or because that's what we need to make a living. Yada yada yada. That's understandable to a certain point,
Mm-hmm.
but you know,
When you start pricing people out of the market and you end up making less sales, you have a problem.
it depends. Like that's actually not true. Um, depending on the economics of the situation,
Mm.
because higher price does even out to less sales. You're just getting, it's less people, but you're getting literally more money from them. But yeah, this game maybe could have gotten away with $20, but literally double the price of all their other games. And I will say also, they didn't do the, they didn't do some of the cheap ways of extending content that have arisen over the years. Anything from fake extreme difficulty, padding of various sorts. That's a big problem in the AAA space. Just the amount of repetitive missions that exist just to pad out the hour time. That kind of thing. No, every level has been crafted with ideas in mind, and so on and so forth. This game is still not worth $30. It's it's not doing enough. It's not expanded enough. It's just not enough to justify $30. So my formal recommendation is buy this when it's the same price as the original or the other games. This is still a $15 to $20 game. You don't have the production values, you don't have the content, you don't have anything here to justify this price hike. So it is unfortunate, but this is also one of those things that will be rectified with enough time. But anyway, so I think I've said my piece on World of Goo 2. Do you two have anything else that you wish to add to the conversation?
I think I'm good.
I think I'm good.
All right, then. So, yeah, basically wait for a deep, deep sale here. With that in mind, that'll about do it for World of Goo 2. Be sure to tune in after the break as Petty reviews Captured.